Exceptional people are born every day. Each one of us has something that makes us unique and distinctly us. While we all have something that defines us from others, some people find themselves in the position to be remembered by history for their exceptional qualities. A woman from humble beginnings who found herself catapulted to wealth but never lost her passion to enjoy her own life while still helping those in need found herself in just this position. This week, we will be taking a look at the life and history of Molly Brown, as well as the history behind her exceptional home. Before we jump into the history of the home, why don't we take a peek into the woman for whom is best known to have lived in this house? Margaret Brown was more popularly known as Molly Brown, or even the Unsinkable Molly Brown. She was born in 1867 in Hannibal, Missouri, to Irish immigrant parents. Coming from humble beginnings, Molly had the advantage of being raised in a progressive household that valued education for all of their children, including their daughters. She was able to attend school until the age of 13, when she would be forced into factory work in order to help support her family. Later on in her life, Molly would follow the trend sweeping the nation, and she and her brother moved out west to Leadville, Colorado. It was in Colorado where she met her future husband, J.J. Brown, a mining engineer. As a mining engineer, J.J. Brown had the luck of striking it rich with his investment in a gold mine. This luck was especially important at this time due to the silver market crash that took place in 1894, which not only helped to catapult the Browns to wealth, but also gave them the opportunity to purchase their famous home. Despite her newfound wealth, Molly Brown always had a penchant for charity work. When she first moved to Colorado, she helped out in soup kitchens. When the silver market crashed, she took part in the progressive movement and began advocating for improvements to the city. Later in her life, she was active in labor movements and advocated for the rights of women as well. Now, if any of you haven't been able to place why the name Molly Brown sounds so familiar, if you think back to the 1997 classic Titanic, you might remember Kathy Bates' performance as the unsinkable Molly Brown. I love this movie because it was a favorite of my mom's, so I watched it quite a bit growing up, and I remember liking the character of Molly Brown a lot. She just always seemed to walk to the beat of her own drum, and she never let the other pretentious rich passengers affect her own perception of herself. She just seemed like she knew who she was, and she didn't care what anyone else thought. Also, just a final thought on the movie, but I do have a pro tip I learned while growing up, and this is probably going to age me, but the original VHS Titanic came on 2 different tapes because it was too long to fit on one. So my mom and I would regularly only watch the first tape because it stopped at the line, "Pick up, you bastards," just before the ship hits the iceberg. So, if you just want a fun romance movie, stop there. If you need to let it out and cry, feel free to watch the rest of the movie afterwards, but I tend to stop just before the iceberg. All of this is to say that Molly Brown did love to travel, and this is what would land her on the Titanic. Molly Brown ended up on the ship as she was traveling home from a trip to tend to her sick grandson, and while her character may have had some artistic liberties taken in the film, she played a fairly important role for many people while on the ship. After the Titanic struck ice, Molly helped other passengers find safety on the lifeboats available, and she was eventually put in a lifeboat herself, and even then, when she and the others were picked up by the Carpathia, she continued to do her best to help the survivors. She even helped to raise funds for the women who survived, but had lost nearly everything in the shipwreck of the Titanic. Just as Molly Brown led an interesting life, her Colorado home did as well. The home is located in the prestigious Capitol Hill neighborhood and was originally constructed in the 1880s by Isaac and Mary Large. The home was built by architect William Lang, who was very popular in the Denver area at the time. This home separated itself from others by having indoor plumbing, heating, electricity, and telephone access, which was considered pretty luxurious for the time. Unfortunately, because the Larges made all of their money in the silver industry, when the silver market crashed in 1894, they were forced to sell their home, giving the Browns the opportunity to move in. Over the next 30 years, the home saw a lot of change. To start, Molly Brown and her husband made several changes to the home themselves, in areas including both the front and the back porch, the roof, and the 3rd floor. In 1898, J.J. transferred the home into Molly's name, and, while she was out traveling, she would often rent the home out to wealthy families. This included Governor James Orman in 1902, making it the governor's mansion for a brief period of time. Molly continued to rent the home until the neighborhood declined due to the Great Depression, at which time she ended up converting the home into a boarding house. After her death in 1932, the home saw several periods of change. It was initially sold with the intention to house more people, and it saw dramatic renovations to create 12 separate spaces within the home. It was then purchased in 1958 by a man named Art Leisenring, who rented the rooms to male boarders. Afterwards, it was leased to the city and became the Jane Addams Hall Home for girls. It wouldn't be until the 1970s when a group of citizens formed the historic Denver Inc. and began a grassroots campaign to save the Molly Brown house. It took quite a bit of media attention and fundraising, but the group was eventually able to purchase the home and make renovations to restore the home to its original form through meticulous study of original house photographs as well as research of architectural practices of the time. The home was designated as a Denver landmark and made its way on to the National Registry of Historic Places in 1972. As for the hauntings related to this now museum, visitors have said to smell JJ's tobacco pipe throughout the home, despite the no smoking policy on the property. Employees at the house/museum often note that light bulbs seem to come undone on their own. Employees have also often remarked that the furniture in the house will inexplicably rearrange itself. Some have even stated to see an apparition of a Victorian woman moving the furniture around, though it is unclear if this is Molly Brown or someone else. If you want my 2 cents, I could absolutely see this being Molly Brown, because she seemed like the kind of woman who would roll up her sleeves and move furniture herself. She seemed to be independent in her living life, so I could almost see her walking into a room and thinking, well, they rearranged things well, but it's not exactly how it used to be, so I'll just do it myself. Or even, oh, I always hated when JJ put this chair here. I'm gonna have to move it. She just seems like the kind of woman who, even in a time when she had the means for people to move her furniture for her, she wouldn't mind just rolling up her sleeves and taking care of things herself. So I could definitely see her being the ghostly Victorian woman behind the furniture moving. Otherwise, cold spots are often felt in Molly Brown's room. People even say that they've caught glimpses of her as they turn the corner. It is also believed that her daughter may haunt her own room. The paranormal activity in this room is most often related to the blinds being raised and lowered on their own. And that is this week's look at the Molly Brown house. If you have ever visited this historic home and have stories yourself, feel free to drop them down below. I will also include a link to the Molly Brown House Museum website below as well. If you are in the area and you're looking for something fun to do, you might consider taking a tour of the building. And while it doesn't seem like ghost tours are a regularly advertised part of what the museum offers, the house may be a part of other local ghost tours in the area, so it's worth a look. The research for this video comes from the Molly Brown House Museum website, the National Register of Historic Places, and the Ghost City Tours website, all of which I will link down below. Thanks for sticking around, and remember, if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to the page. Check the description for links to my socials, and I'll see you next time. Bye!